Today, I'm going to be talking about my visit to the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, fans of Through My Lens know that I'm a big BMW guy, and I've owned several BMWs that I've reviewed both here on Through My Lens YouTube channel as well as on the Through My Lens website. But when I was in college, I owned a 1987 Porsche 944, and in many ways that car was the best car I've ever owned. And I've always considered myself a huge Porsche fan. So when I accompanied my buddy Snareman to Greenville, South Carolina to do a BMW Performance Center delivery on his 2023 M8, we decided to take his new car 2.5 hours south on I-75 to the Porsche Experience Center. Let me begin by saying that I think the Porsche Experience Center was at least somewhat influenced by what BMW did with their Performance Delivery Center in Greenville, South Carolina. The BMW Performance Delivery Center has been around for 23 years, while the Porsche Experience Center was built far more recently in 2015. And there are a lot of parallels between the two facilities, and I don't think that happened on accident. Both facilities are multi-purpose and serve several different functions. Both provide a delivery option for their respective brand owners when ordering a new vehicle. With both brands, you can order a new vehicle and have it delivered to the corresponding facility and enjoy a unique experience that goes well beyond what a dealer can provide when delivering a new vehicle. Both facilities have a wide variety of instructional driving courses and offerings geared toward all ages and skill levels. Both facilities have museums which celebrate their respective heritage. Both facilities host a number of private and corporate events, and of course, both facilities have gift shops with brand-centric merchandise for fans and enthusiasts. Now, when I visited the Porsche Experience Center, I stayed at the Kimpton Overland Hotel, which is essentially across the parking lot from the Porsche Experience Center. Now, on the plus side, you can't beat the convenience of being so close to the Porsche Experience Center, and the Kimpton Overland has a very modern and upscale feel. It was designed by the same architectural firm that was responsible for designing the award-winning Porsche Experience Center. I particularly enjoyed the 8th floor terrace that overlooked the Porsche Experience Center and the main track. It's a great place to enjoy both sunrise and sunset, as well as to do some plane spotting, since the Porsche Experience Center is extremely close to the Atlanta Airport flight line. Now, if you're concerned about noise from all those planes overhead, don't be. Both the hotel and the Porsche Experience Center itself are very well insulated from that noise. I paid for 3 separate activities during my visit to the Porsche Experience Center, all of which were ordered ahead of time on the website, which I highly recommend. We did the paid hour-and-a-half guided tour of the Porsche Experience Center. We paid for 30 minutes of time in the simulator lab, and we paid for 90 minutes of a Porsche driving experience with the cars of our choice. My buddy Snareman chose to drive a 718 Cayman S, while I chose to drive a Macan GTS. I chose the Macan GTS because I wanted an instructional driving experience in a vehicle that was similar to the one that I drive, which is of course my 2022 BMW X3M. Our day began with the guided tour. The tour was led by a couple of nice older gentlemen who were representatives of the local Peachtree chapter of the Porsche Club of America. The gentlemen who led the tour were, again, nice enough, but they felt like volunteers, not professional tour guides. And given that we paid $16 each for this tour, I can't exactly say that I felt the tour was worth the price. A highlight during the tour was the museum area, where the current exhibit was called The Colors of Porsche. We saw some beautiful examples, including a Porsche 968, which was the model that replaced the Porsche 944, which I mentioned earlier in this video I used to own. The floor below the exhibit had an area that I believe was called the Heritage Collection, but was largely empty during the time of our visit, and apparently normally has more cars than the 3 that were present. Another highlight was visiting the Personal Design Studio. If you've ever tried to option a Porsche on their website, you know there are a dizzying number of options. Anyone who wants to order a new Porsche can make arrangements to work with a Porsche design consultant in the Personal Design Studio, and you can go through all the available options and actually go hands-on with all the different materials and color choices that are associated with the options that you can select. And when you're finished, you can see a representation of what you ordered on a huge monitor in the personal design studio. It's a fantastic idea. We also learned about the Classic Restoration Center, where Porsche owners can bring their classic Porsches to have them fully restored with factory parts and by factory technicians. They can currently only accommodate about 4 or 5 vehicles at a time, but Porsche is building an expanded standalone restoration facility very close to the Porsche Experience Center that should be online sometime in 2024. Again, another great idea and a pretty unique offering. It's probably not a cheap option, but certainly shows that Porsche has a great commitment to their owners. After we wrapped up the tour, we headed to the simulator lab for our 30-minute session. This was another unique offering that I have not seen previously. As the name suggests, the simulator lab had several driving simulators that were networked together that allowed people to drive any one of several world-famous racetracks. Apparently each simulator cost $22,000 to build, so they were very sophisticated. Now, I'm no stranger to video games or driving hard, but both Snareman and myself found the driving simulator booths to induce more than a fair amount of nausea in each of us. I'm sure if you spend enough time in the simulator, you could probably acclimate your brain to what you were seeing and experiencing. At one point, Snareman and I did race the Nürburgring. He and I have both driven on the Nürburgring and were both concluded that in real life it was not nearly as nausea-inducing as the simulator was. It's a neat idea, but I would definitely suggest staying on the easiest track that they have unless you have a lot of experience in similar driving simulators. Even the driving instructors that we spoke with indicated that the simulators in the simulator lab made them nauseous. If you're going to go with the simulator lab, I might advise doing it after your actual driving experience. After the simulator lab, it was time to head out on the track. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to mount any cameras inside the car to get video footage while we were driving. But I was able to get some video footage of cars that were on the track doing most of the activities that we did, which I'll be showing. The track at the Porsche Experience Center was a bit different than what I'm used to from the BMW Performance Center. For one thing, there are guardrails on the track, which means you definitely want to sign up for the $50 insurance, which limits your liability to $2,500 in the event of an accident. If you do make a mistake in the car and it gets away from you, more than likely you are going to go into a guardrail on this track. The other thing that was different was how the various track activities that are happening simultaneously to your own driving experience are organized. It's kind of organized chaos that happens simultaneously as the track is divided into modules, and you can sort of choose which one that you want and how much time you want to spend on each. That means you may choose to do a module that you find and there's no one else there at the time that you want to do it. Conversely, you may find that there's a long line at your chosen module. That also means that the way the track is laid out, it's possible that you may need to defer to another driver who needs to get around you, and the track has a few places where you do need to look both ways when crossing and wait for the instructor to tell you it's okay to go. That's a little unnerving. Now, one thing I really liked about the driving experience at Porsche is that you get an instructor that sits next to you in the car. My instructor was quite good and had previous professional racing experience. The instructor my buddy Snareman had was also quite good and did professional stunt driving for films in the Atlanta area. So that was pretty neat. When we compared notes afterward, it was pretty clear that the instructors have a lot of latitude in terms of the curriculum that they teach, but there wasn't a lot of consistency. In my case, we started by taking a couple of laps around the large perimeter handling course, where the instructor got a sense for my ability level, and he asked some questions about what I was interested in working on and learning during our time together. After the laps, we went over to the braking module, where we practiced not only braking at different speeds, but we also used launch control on the Macan, which was pretty neat. Afterward, we went to my favorite module of the day, which was the kick plate. Now, as you enter this portion of the track, a plate that runs underneath the vehicle will kick to one side or the other randomly and make the rear end start to come around. The track is made of polished concrete and is wet down to make it very slick. You'll also find that there are pop-up obstacles that will come up in front of you that you need to avoid. Now, Snareman and I watched a lot of different vehicles try this module, and the vast majority spun out of control. But both he and I were able to maintain control at 20, 25, and 30 miles per hour without traction control or stability control. Now next we went over to what I call the drift ring, which was a ring of polished concrete which is kept wet by sprinklers. This gives you the opportunity to experience both oversteer and understeer and how to modulate throttle control and steering in order to maintain control of the vehicle. They'll also give you the opportunity to learn how to drift, which I thought was interesting. My instructor first took the wheel and we went around the circle a few times and he demonstrated his drifting abilities, which were impressive. And then we switched drivers and I tried my hand. Now, I never got to the point of being able to drift, but I think if I would have had more time, then I would have been able to do so. Finally, we did a few more laps on the large handling track where I was able to sort of put everything together that I had learned during our time in these last few laps. The hour and a half went by pretty quickly, and there are at least a couple of modules that I didn't get the opportunity to try. They do have an off-road module at the Porsche Experience Center, but I didn't get the opportunity to try it out, which was a bummer because I really wanted to compare it to the off-road track experience at the BMW Performance Center. There was also a second circular area that cars entered into, spun the car around 180 degrees, and then exited the same route that they entered, which looked like big fun and something I definitely want to try the next time that I'm there.
Maybe let's wrap this up with kind of our overall thoughts.
Sure.
So in my way of thinking, both are great facilities. I greatly enjoyed both of them. If you're an enthusiast of either brand, you owe it to yourself to take a trip and experience what they have to offer. I would make the argument if you're going to one for whatever reason, whether you're doing a new car delivery or just doing a driving experience, if you have the ability to drive 2.5, 3 hours to the other facility, do it. Experience both, because they're both just bucket list experiences.
Yeah.
I think anybody would want to.
Yeah, and we did an hour and a half driving experience at Porsche, plus the other, we did an hour and a half tour. Got to mention that BMW doesn't have tours. I mean, so the BMW has a factory tour, but they don't have a tour of like sort of their museum. Right. I don't think they have a Zentrum tour at BMW.
Right.
So win for Porsche there. There were two docents that gave us a tour. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. So similar to what you said, they're both good in different ways. I think there's not a clear winner. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. They're both amazing places. They both got amazing cars. I think, yeah, like I said, if you can go to both, it worked out for us that we're from Ohio and we went to South Carolina and just kind of looped back through Atlanta on the way back. I added a few hours to the trip. His idea, I'm glad he suggested it because it was a great experience. Even if you're only going for a short driving experience, but if you do one of the longer, you do one of their immersion things, which I think is longer, I think it's a great experience. You can do M School. You have so many options at both places that I think both are worthy of going to, and not a clear winner on either side. They're both great and pretty close to each other.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. There's our take on the BMW Performance Center versus the Porsche Experience Center. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care. God bless. We'll see you in the next video.
I hope you've enjoyed this production from the Through My Lens YouTube channel. If you did, please click on the like button and do share the video on social media. If you'd like to see more content like it, please do subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and do check out Through My Lens at www.throughmylens.org.